The Neuroscience of Mental Hijacking. When a notification hits your phone, 2025 studies confirm that every ping triggers a small dopamine release in reward pathways, making focus feel like a battle of willpower. This isn't metaphorical. The same neural circuits that create chemical dependencies are being activated dozens of times every day by your devices. Every notification your phone sends creates a small hit of pleasure that your brain begins to crave. The timing is unpredictable, which makes it even more powerful. Sometimes you get an important message, sometimes it's spam, sometimes it's a like on social media. This variable reward schedule is identical to what makes slot machines so addictive. Your brain never knows when the next reward is coming, so it stays in a state of anticipation and readiness. The more often these notifications arrive, the more your brain restructures itself to expect and seek out these dopamine hits. Users check their phones over 300 times a day, and each interruption steals an average of 23 minutes of focus. Most people never experience true sustained attention because they interrupt themselves before their brain has time to settle into deep focus. Neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Chen's latest research from Stanford's Digital Behavior Lab shows that constant task switching reduces cognitive capacity by up to 40%. Her team used monitoring to measure brain activity in subjects who worked in environments with frequent digital interruptions versus those who worked in distraction-free conditions. The results were striking. People who experienced regular interruptions showed significantly reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, planning, and self-control. Even more concerning, these changes persisted for hours after the interruption stopped. The prefrontal cortex acts like the CEO of your brain. It makes decisions about what deserves attention, inhibits impulses, and maintains focus on long-term goals. Chronic digital overstimulation essentially weakens this critical brain region. Think of it like a muscle that gets exhausted from overuse. When your prefrontal cortex is depleted from constantly managing interruptions and making decisions about what to pay attention to, it loses the strength needed to maintain focus on challenging tasks. Brain scans from 2025 studies show that people who spend more than 6 hours daily on digital devices have measurably less gray matter in areas associated with sustained attention and emotional regulation. The anterior cingulate cortex, which helps you stay focused despite distractions, shows reduced volume in heavy technology users. The insula, which processes internal body signals and helps you recognize when you're getting distracted, also shrinks with excessive screen time. These changes represent actual modifications to brain tissue. This neurological hijacking explains why traditional willpower-based approaches to productivity consistently fail. When people try to force themselves to focus through sheer determination, they're asking a weakened prefrontal cortex to overpower neural pathways that have been strengthened through thousands of repetitions. It's like trying to lift a heavy weight with an injured arm. The effort creates internal tension and often backfires, leading to even stronger urges to seek distraction. The attention economy has essentially rewired our brains to resist the very activities that lead to meaningful achievement. Technology companies employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists specifically to make their products more engaging and harder to put down. They use techniques like intermittent variable rewards, social approval mechanisms, and fear of missing out to keep users constantly checking their devices. These companies measure success by how much time people spend on their platforms, not by how much value users gain from the experience. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a notification about a work email and a notification about a social media like. Both trigger the same neurochemical response. Both pull your attention away from whatever you were doing. Both strengthen the neural pathways that associate digital stimulation with reward. Over time, this conditioning makes your brain interpret the absence of stimulation as a problem that needs solving. When you sit down to work on something important, your unstimulated brain starts generating urges to check for updates, messages, or any form of novel information. Understanding this biological reality is crucial because it shifts the conversation from personal failure to systemic manipulation. Gohan isn't weak or lacking in discipline. Her brain is responding exactly as it was designed to respond to environments that provide constant, unpredictable rewards. The same neural mechanisms that helped our ancestors survive by staying alert to potential threats or opportunities in their environment now work against us in a world full of artificial stimulation designed to capture attention. The research reveals why modern productivity advice often misses the mark. Time management techniques, organizational systems, and motivational strategies all assume that people have access to normal levels of sustained attention. But if your brain has been rewired to expect stimulation every few minutes, these approaches are trying to solve the wrong problem. It's like offering swimming lessons to someone who's drowning. The technique might be sound, but it doesn't address the immediate crisis. Current neuroscience also shows us that these changes aren't permanent. Your brain can relearn focus patterns throughout life, meaning it can develop new neural pathways and strengthen underused regions. However, this rewiring process requires consistent practice and environmental changes that support sustained attention rather than fragmented focus. Simply trying harder or using more willpower strengthens the same neural patterns that created the problem in the first place. This scientific understanding provides hope rather than despair. Once you recognize that difficulty focusing isn't a personal failing, but a predictable response to environmental conditioning, you can begin working systematically to restore your brain's natural capacity for sustained attention. The challenge of training a distracted mind isn't new. Humans have faced this same fundamental struggle for thousands of years, long before digital devices existed. Ancient wisdom meets modern crisis. Monks 2,500 years ago developed mindfulness and flow practices to manage mental resistance, methods confirmed by modern neuroscience. These ancient practitioners understood something that modern research is only now validating. The human mind is inherently restless and will seek the path of least resistance unless trained otherwise. Monks living in monasteries faced the same fundamental challenge that Gohan faces today. Their minds would wander during meditation, pull toward comfortable thoughts, and resist the sustained effort required for spiritual practice. The difference was that these ancient practitioners developed systematic methods to work with mental resistance rather than against it. These monks didn't have smartphones or social media, but they faced distractions that were just as compelling in their context. The mind would drift toward memories of life before the monastery, worries about family members, or fantasies about returning to worldly pleasures. During long meditation sessions, practitioners would feel physical discomfort, boredom, or overwhelming urges to move or speak. The human brain's tendency to seek novelty and avoid sustained effort hasn't changed in thousands of years. Only the specific forms of distraction have evolved. The ancient practitioners discovered that fighting mental resistance directly often made it stronger. When they tried to force their minds to focus through willpower alone, they created internal tension that actually increased distraction. Instead, they developed approaches that acknowledged the mind's natural patterns while gradually training it toward greater stability and clarity. These methods formed the foundation of what we now call the Lotus method. The Lotus method draws from 3 core Eastern traditions that each address different aspects of mental training. Buddhist mindfulness provides the foundation of present moment awareness. This practice teaches you to observe your thoughts and impulses without automatically reacting to them. When the urge to check your phone arises, mindfulness helps you notice the urge itself rather than being swept away by it. You learn to see thoughts as mental events rather than commands that must be obeyed. Taoist flow principles contribute the second element by emphasizing working with natural energy rather than forcing outcomes through effort alone. This approach suggests that maximum effectiveness comes from aligning with natural rhythms rather than constantly pushing against resistance. Applied to focus and productivity, this means learning to recognize when your energy is naturally high and directing challenging tasks to those periods while using low energy times for routine activities. Zen-focused action provides the third component through practices that cultivate sustained, single-pointed attention. Zen traditions develop techniques for maintaining awareness during everyday activities, not just during formal meditation. This approach trains the mind to remain present and focused regardless of external circumstances or internal mental chatter, teaching that true strength and clarity come from stillness rather than constant activity. Unlike modern productivity systems that fight against human nature, these teachings work with the mind's natural patterns. Most contemporary approaches try to override mental resistance through force, discipline, or clever tricks. They treat the mind like a machine that should operate according to logical principles. Eastern philosophy recognizes that the mind has its own intelligence and natural rhythms that must be respected rather than dominated. The lotus flower symbolizes the transformation that becomes possible through patient, steady progress. This flower grows from muddy pond bottoms, pushing through dark water to bloom in pristine beauty above the surface. The mud isn't an obstacle to the lotus, it's the necessary foundation that provides nutrients for growth. Similarly, mental resistance and distraction aren't enemies to be eliminated, but natural conditions that can fuel development when approached skillfully. Ancient Buddhist texts describe the mind as inherently pure, but clouded by external disturbances. This description sounds remarkably similar to our current digital predicament. These teachings suggest that mental clarity is our natural state, temporarily obscured by conditioning and habitual patterns. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient insight. The brain's capacity for sustained attention isn't damaged by digital distraction, but rather buried under layers of conditioning that can be gradually removed. The key insight that runs through all these traditions is that resistance isn't the enemy. When you feel mental pushback against a challenging task, that resistance contains valuable information about how your energy wants to move. Sometimes resistance indicates that you're forcing something at the wrong time or in the wrong way. Other times it signals that you're approaching a growth edge where real learning can happen. The ancient practitioners learned to read these signals and respond appropriately, rather than bulldozing through every obstacle. Modern research validates what monks knew intuitively. Sustainable focus comes from harmony, not force. Studies of meditation practitioners show increased gray matter in areas associated with attention regulation and decreased activity in brain regions linked to mind wandering. These findings confirm that the ancient methods produce genuine neurological changes that support sustained attention. The Lotus method adapts these proven principles specifically for the unique challenges of 2025's attention economy. While the core insights remain unchanged, the specific applications must address modern realities like constant connectivity, information overload, and environments designed to fragment attention. The method provides practical techniques for applying ancient wisdom to contemporary situations like remote work, social media management, and digital overwhelm. These Eastern approaches offer something that modern productivity culture often lacks: patience with the learning process. Ancient practitioners understood that developing genuine focus takes time and consistent practice. They didn't expect immediate results or perfect performance. They worked with their minds gradually, celebrating small improvements and learning from setbacks. This attitude creates sustainable progress rather than the boom and bust cycles that characterize many contemporary approaches to productivity and focus. The wisdom embedded in these traditions provides a stable foundation for navigating an increasingly chaotic world. While external circumstances continue to change rapidly, the fundamental principles of mental training remain constant. Learning to work skillfully with your own mind provides a source of clarity and effectiveness that doesn't depend on external conditions or technological solutions.